and visualization and improve the data submission process. And so this was the first step in that direction. I have here with me Matt Biddle, one of our data managers, who is our resident expert of this new capability for data access and visualization. And so he's just going to give you a quick tour of some of the things that we're proposing to do at BCODMO. And for the folk, we're going to run this demo a couple times here, so no worries if you miss anything. But I'll turn it over to Matt, and we'll have a period for questions after his demo, and look forward to talking with you. We're out at the help desk table if you have any other questions. But thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Adam. So yeah, what I wanted to walk through today was just how we're currently serving the data that's being submitted to us, and some of the new access mechanisms that we've been working on developing to kind of to make your life a little bit easier when you're trying to ingest the data and trying to work with some of the data that we're serving. So I wanted to walk through one data set and go through our previous pathway, our previous access, and then go through the new access and the new tools that are available through our service. So if you've ever worked with us before, if you've ever submitted data to us, or you've ever actually got data from our website, you know that a lot of what we do is develop these rich, enhanced metadata records to comprehensively describe the data that's collected. So this includes information about instruments, information about the platforms that it was collected on, how it was collected, any post-processing that was done, the units associated with each parameter, and a variety of other things, including the award numbers and things like that. And so what we're really trying to do is make this data reusable and interoperable with the broader community outside of just say the OCB community, with other agencies and things like that. And so this is an example of one of our metadata landing pages. This is a GeoTraces data set. I think this is a Ben Twining data set. And so we build out these robust metadata records, have all this description and information, and then if you just want to get at the data, you'd go through a typical pathway would be to go to this get data link. And what this does is takes you to, well, of course, doing a live demo, things don't work as expected. Really? And why? I just tested this like 2 seconds ago, and now it doesn't work. Go figure. Let's try one more time. There we go. So what this takes you to is a levelized view of the data set, and this allows you to start digging in and interrogating data, and it gives you different portions to kind of subset and look at. So you can click through some of these hyperlinks, and it brings you to different portions of the data. But let's say you want to get to all the data. So we click through these next levels, and what each level is doing is displaying those different subsets, but it's displaying all the information within those subsets. So if we click through to get to the end of the next level, and we get the flat listing, this gives you a tabular representation, a textual representation of all the data associated with that data set. And so one of the pathways people have been using to get all the data associated with the data set and process it is take all of this and you bring it into, say, an Excel spreadsheet, and then you do some pre-processing to get it into a format that you can start actually using. So you have to determine what the delimiters are, determine what each field is, and then you have to couple that with the metadata record that we developed to understand what the units are and how to fully understand that actual data set. And so what we've done now is we've taken those data, subset of our data sets and put them into a service called ERDAP. And what this does is it allows us to couple in all of that rich and enhanced metadata in with the data. So when you're getting the package, you're getting the units, the description, you're getting a lot of that metadata in with the data. So it makes it easier to do that post-processing, that reanalysis of whatever the data might be. And so some of these, you'll see these are new badges that we just put out online on Friday. And it's only a subset of our data, the data that we've actually DOI'd. So we're going through a process of enhancing a lot of our metadata records to create digital object identifiers. And through that process, we're loading the data sets into ERDAP. So right now, it's only a subset of our data, but soon to be most of our holdings. And so if we go to the view table link, so this is an ERDAP table view of that exact same data set that I showed you through our old service. And you can see that now it's a little prettier on the eyes. We have an HTML table, but we're also encompassing the units here. So you can start really digging in and seeing, okay, what is this data that I'm looking at? What are the units? Are these values something that I'm actually interested in? And then you can start doing cool things like adding in this data set has associated images with it. So we have a tabular file that also references different JPEG images. So we can go and we can start interrogating some of the images without actually downloading anything. All we're doing is just looking at the web page right now. So we can get a lot of useful information out of just viewing this. And so that gives us an idea of what the data is and what we're holding right now. We also have the capability to start doing subsets. We had this before, but it was through kind of a quirky little web form. And so now we have this new data access form. And what this allows you to do is select the data sets that you're interested in and start subsetting and doing specific queries of what the actual, it might be only a little portion of the data that you want to get. And so what I'm going to do is I only want to get data in the surface, the upper 50 meters, and I only want to get a certain variable. So I'm going to uncheck all the variables, and I'm going to say I want depth, but I only want the upper 50 meters. So I'm going to bring this toggle over and bring it down to around 50. And now, well, I want to look at some of these variables. I'm not sure. So if we hover over some of the question marks, we get this more robust information about what each variable is. So we get a description. This is cellular carbon content calculated by biovolume. And then we get units, we get all that information. So that's something that I'm interested in, but I only want the upper 50 meters. So we select that variable, and then we want it in a table view like we did before. So now I'm only getting that specific subset of data back. So I'm not getting this entire giant package. I'm just getting the data that I'm actually interested in. So that's a really nice capability that we have before, but now it's a little bit easier to manage. And the rest of these blue badges and blue links are actually to download the entire data set as those different types of file formats. And so the first one is a CSV, which is a comma-separated file. And this, what it's doing is downloading the entire data set. So you just saw I just downloaded it locally, and now I'm going to crack it open in Excel. That's my CSV processing software of choice. And now we can see that pretty quickly I was able to download the entire data set, get it into a format that I'm comfortable with using, and start actually doing some processing on it. And so now we have all the data in here, and we have the associated units, so we don't have to go back and couple the metadata record with the actual data file. So we're reducing that time from discovery back into reusability and back into science. So we're trying to help you guys out with getting not having to do that pre-processing. We also are providing a tab separated, that's a TSV. It's the same as the CSV, just with tabs instead. Some people find that more useful. We can start producing more enhanced access services, like a GeoJSON, for example. And so what this is a geo-referenced JSON file. And so if that happens to be your file format of choice, you can use services to take that data file, load it up into whatever your software package might be that you might use. In this case, I know there just happens to be a website out there that'll interpret a GeoJSON response. But you can see I pulled that data in. It already understands how to interpret that data using all the metadata that's provided. And then we can start actually interrogating each of the data points and looking at some of the associated information there. So we're reducing that time for you to be able to bring the data in and start processing it. We provided a MATLAB format before, but you had to do a little bit of conversions from strings to floats and things like that. And so now we can grab the entire data set as a MATLAB file, load it straight into MATLAB. MATLAB already knows what it is. It loads it in as a structure. And then we can look and see there's all the fields associated. Those are all the variables that are in there. And now we're assigning actually the data types. So you no longer have to do that string or character to float conversion. It's already ready to go. You can start processing and analyzing it right on the fly. We also are providing a NETCDF. And what this is a network common data file. And it allows us to couple all of that rich, robust metadata in with the data file itself. So it's a self-describing format, and it's used heavily among the modeling community, but we're starting to see it being outreached into other communities, and it really facilitates a lot of that reusability after you grab the data and run with it. And then we're also providing an ODV text file, and so this allows you to grab the data, suck it right into ODV as a textual representation, and start processing right on the fly. And so what I'm doing here is just grabbing that text file, opening it. I'm going to leave all the ODV defaults because it already knows how to interpret the file because of that metadata and all that value added that we incorporated with the data file. And you can see that leaving all the defaults, not playing with anything, and just bringing it right in, we can start interrogating each of the data points and start doing our post-processing right there. We didn't have to do a lot of pre-processing to get it in here to start working with it. So that's some of the endpoints that we've provided out there as quick access. But the real big capability with an ERDAP server is that it provides all of these different web endpoints for the data in a variety of different formats. And so ERDAP is a NOAA-developed system, and there's quite a few repositories that are actually using it, and it's an open source system. So there's a lot of community development on enhancing the system and making it usable to a variety of people. And so each of these endpoints is just a different extension on what the URL is. So I've ended in a .csv, I ended in a .tsv or a .NETCDF to get these different endpoints and get these different file formats. But if we start understanding how to build those URLs, and there's tons of documentation online about how to do this, we could start doing fancy things like bringing it into, say, a Jupyter notebook using Python and start processing our data right there on the fly instead of having to go through, download a data file, save it somewhere, do all this. We can do things. And so this is an example of bringing one of our time series data sets into a Jupyter notebook and just making some quick plots and looking at the data. And so I first have to bring in a couple libraries and then build out. So this is the ERDAP server URL. So all this whole thing is doing is building a URL for the data set that we're interested in. And so this is the URL right here of the data set that we're interested in. And then I use a package called pandas in Python, which allows you to easily process tabular data files. And so I imported it, and now I'm printing out descriptive statistics about that data set. So we're already starting to do some processing, and I really didn't have to put a lot of effort into doing something like this. And then we can start doing things like making a time series plots and start really digging into the post-processing. So this is really where the power of doing something like ERDAP gets to the end user, gets to the community as well. And then I have a little bit more. So this is kind of where we're starting to see the future of a lot of data science going, is using these Jupyter notebooks and using these things. And so what you can do with these ERDAP endpoints additionally is build in sort of your query into your workflow and start building your workflows without having to go digging around on websites and things like that. So this is an example of actually hitting our ERDAP server and building a query using a couple fancy Jupyter things. I'm telling it that this is where our ERDAP server is. And then I'm saying I want to look at some of the categories. So I want to look at keywords, because I know that GeoTraces data set had a keyword in there called SXRF. So I'm going to look for keywords with SXRF. And this is all built on our ERDAP server. We're not doing anything fancy here. We're just saying, hey, go to our ERDAP server and give me all the available keywords and then search for all those keywords. And so now I'm going to search through our ERDAP for all the data sets that are associated with that keyword and give me back all the titles. And so this happens to be that title of that GeoTraces data set, so we can import it. And now we can start doing things like doing some brief statistics again. And then let's make a plot. Let's see where all these data sets are, so we can start doing the geospatial analysis. And then we can start doing, say, profile plots of that same cellular carbon content. And so this ERDAP service really allows a lot of flexibility and a lot of different services to be tapped on top of it. And so what we're really trying to do is help you guys reduce the time from discovery into reusability and back into science, so you don't have to do a lot of that pre-processing. So like I said before, this is kind of a beta. We just released it out on Friday, and we're slowly going through all of our DOI data sets are going to be loaded in, and eventually we're hoping to get to other data sets like video and audio things. You can do some really cool tricks with that. And there's a help menu out online, and we have a help desk out in the lobby if you got any questions or anything like that. And I think that was the gist of what I wanted to show for today. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them out.